Okay, so Liz, we can go ahead and get started. I first would like to tell you guys, Liz is not only a dear friend of mine, she is like boss lady. I'll let her tell you a little bit about herself, but she has the business side. She also is launching a coaching company. I go to her with no matter what facet of my life, and she's like, I got you. Here's what you do in business. Here's what you do for this. So I was lucky enough to hear her do a similar presentation to this at Akron U. It was amazing. And I've told her I've got to bring you into KW. So I hope you guys enjoy. Liz, tell us about yourself.
All right. Well, thank you, Jill, and thanks everybody for attending. I'm here today to talk to you about how to create a career and ultimately a life that serves your whole self, or sometimes as I like to refer to it as your whole arse, or whole ass, which is why you see a peach up there. And so that's what we're going to talk to you today about. But let me tell you a little bit about me. And Jill, thanks so much for the introduction. So my work self, I have nearly 20 years in business. My background spans from everything to marketing on the brand side, to digital marketing, commercialization, training, org development. And these are just a couple of the brands and businesses that I've touched and more in my work tenure. I'm a consultant, and so I focus on everything from org development and design to training and all of that good content in relation to omni-channel integration and marketing and business. I'm also, as Jill mentioned, a coach, and I specialize really in whole life coaching in relation to getting individuals to really get to the next level in their career and their life. In alignment with their values. And I'm going to share some of the concepts that I use in doing that. And then obviously I'm a creator, both in terms of digital content and written content. I have my own podcast and I love to write. But my personal self is I am the mom of two young girls, 10 and 8. They light up my life. And this is my picture of my spouse, Mark. And we live in the Northeast Ohio area in North Canton, pretty close to the Jacksons. And so just, holding it down in Ohio. And I love Peloton, karaokeing, and I love school supplies. I have obsessions with notebooks and pens and all that fun stuff. But most importantly, why I'm here today is really, I want to empower you to build a career and a life that serves your entire self. And that's really what my mission is. And why I'm here is to empower you to create a career and ultimately a life with your whole self, so that when you're done with this precious, limited time that we all have, you can say, I did it my way. And it's important for us to really kind of keep this in front of all of us, right? In terms of what do I want out of life? Because I don't know about you, the last couple years have been so cringy in some way, shape, or form. So, first there was 2020 with obviously the pandemic and shutdown. And maybe while business was good on your side, many of you might have been homeschooling or dealing with just health concerns and health scares. I know for 21 and 2020 for me, it was a year of massive change. I had job changes, we've lost a loved one. And so I had to personally, completely reframed how I was showing up. But let's say that 2020 was a good year for you. And maybe you saw some really, really great headlines in relation to the real estate market in particular. And now you're sitting in 2023 and you might be thinking, oh, what do I do? I'm kind of confused. I went from these great years and now I'm hearing there could be a crash. And then I'm also hearing that Cleveland is the second hottest real estate market in the US. And so the whole thing that I want to get across to you all, and it's really important for me and the way that I think about coaching, is no matter what happened in the last few years, or what's going to happen tomorrow, or what's currently going in your life today, the one thing that you ultimately can control is the way that you show up, the way that you show up in your life, the way you show up in your career. And one of the ways that I encourage us all to think about how we show up is not to think about ourselves as employees or agents or our title, but ultimately in anything we do in life, think about ourselves as the talent. and think of ourselves as the talent showing up every day and continuing to persevere no matter what cringiness or uncertainty is going on in the background. And so oftentimes I'm big into mantras and self-talk. I ask everyone to repeat after me, and you don't have to today. But one important mantra I want you to take away from this conversation is I am the talent and the talent is me. So you're kind of channeling a little Stuart Smalley energy here. But I think that's really important as we start to go forward in this conversation today, because it is central to the model that I'll be taking you through. So here's the deal. I love to use the word talent when I think of how you all show up in your day-to-day life, because it's so freaking special when you think of the term, I'm the talent. And I know that we hear a lot of just trying to be modest and you know, really just being humble. But for one hot second, can we just stop that crap? Because you and your efforts are never worth discounting. And we really need to keep ourselves in alignment with how we want to show up and who we want to be. And so when I say you are the talent, this is what I mean. The talent has confidence. The talent has standards for his, her, and their environment. The talent has an entourage or a posse, whichever word works for you. And your number one job as the talent is to create as many experiences that serves your talent and makes you happy. And we'll talk a little bit about that today. Because when you embrace yourself as talent and your own talent, you inspire others to do the same. The talent half-asses nothing because the talent always uses their whole ass. And so we're going to talk about ultimately a little bit more about what that means. But one thing I want to just bring up is the three areas that I'm going to speak to you about. And it's ultimately about working and focusing on your own confidence, the context in which you surround yourself, which we'll talk about that in a minute, and then also the connections. So let's start with principle number one, which is confidence. And I don't think that there's anybody who's more confident than Beyonce. And so she just inspires me so much every time I see her. But when we think about confidence, an equation I want you to keep in mind is unconditional confidence in yourself is greater than external trust. And so to illustrate this point, I want to tell you just a story of my personal journey. And in this story in particular, I was an employee at a company at a time. And so I was really, just at this company, at this job, I was in an intense amount of stress in relation to, gosh, I have this opportunity to change, this work environment. And, I had this opportunity to sit down with one of the leading executives at my company and really influence where the company could be going in a variety of directions. And I was so excited about it. I was actually really nervous. I, was pitting out. I probably looked something like this. And I was just really excited to get in front of this executive. And so I worked really, really hard on this amazing one-sheeter because we know that we all have, the attention span of goldfish. And this was pre-mom jeans. So I had on probably an outfit similar to this with a little cuffed blazer and my awesome school supplies. And I was just thrilled when I got in the meeting. So I had my little pad folio. I had my one-sheeter. I'm sitting in this guy's office. I made sure to book time a week in advance for 30 minutes. I had my pitch down to 20. And do you know what happened? Okay. In the middle of my introduction, this gentleman asked me if I could just hold for a minute because he was watching the World Cup. So here I am, sitting there with my presentation with this very, really strong point of view. And I was just so caught off guard because I kept getting interrupted by, this gentleman who I had booked time with saying, wait, hold on, the World Cup's here. And I even offered multiple times, hey, do you want to just reschedule? But, he didn't he said, no, just stay here. Apparently he wanted his soccer with a side of strategy. And so there I sat, and over our period of like 20 to 30 minutes, I was interrupted like 2 to 3 times. And, I'm sure that my face looked something like this because I was just withholding so much tension, but I did what any other good, trusting soldier who was a little bit intimidated did. I sat there, I kept my mouth shut, and I didn't leave the room. And in this time, the little voice inside my head said, get the heck out of here. Get up, like, don't take this, get in alignment with your integrity. And I didn't do that. I kind of sat there and I swallowed my ego and I swallowed my pride. And then I walked out of the meeting, and I felt pretty deflated. And the funny thing about this story is maybe 2 months after that meeting and that engagement, I ended up getting promoted and reporting to this person. And I remember in my head, I kept telling myself, thank God I did not say what I wanted to say. And I'm so thankful. Good thing I kept my mouth shut. But here's the thing. Was that a good thing? And I know in this circumstance, it's really hard, to kind of navigate and maneuver. But I had a voice inside my gut that things weren't necessarily right for me. And what ended up happening is over that span of time where I reported to this person, I really put a lot of stake in his opinion of me. And my equation was all backwards. So I had a higher degree of trust in an external opinion and validation than I did within my own confidence and my own intuition. And what started to happen for me personally is little by little, I was not in alignment with my confidence and my integrity. So I required a lot of external factors to enhance my self-worth. I craved a lot of praise. I craved a lot of promotions. I had more emphasis on a 360-degree performance appraisal from this individual than I did on how I was feeling in my whole life appraisal. And it really led me to spin in terms of disempowered thoughts, feelings, and actions. And so I had the equation all backwards. And what we really need, and what I want you to take away, is when we think about ourselves as talent, what we need to do is work on our unconditional confidence over trusting external factors. And I'm not saying that trust is wrong. You can trust, what you're seeing in the market. You can trust, your leadership team. Those are not bad things. And if you work for a company and a person and people around you who you trust, that is amazing. But just make sure that you always have the upper hand in relation to your own unconditional confidence, because stuff is certainly going to hit the fan. We know that that's a guarantee if we look back over the last couple of years. And what we need to work on is you showing up as the talent consistently and in your own power. So what unconditional confidence means is believing you are unconditionally valuable because you exist. You don't need external validation. You trust your own internal compass and your intuition versus the external opinions of others. And it also means being in the driver's seat of your own life versus being locked in the trunk with your boss or your market situations driving you. So just to illustrate this step further, we oftentimes hear it's so important to work for a great company. It's so important to get in with a good team. And that's not wrong. But instead of just looking for that, instead of just trusting your employer to prepare you for work, try to build confidence in knowing your business, the obstacles, and the opportunities that you need to take in the market, your outlook on things. Instead of trusting a boss or a career path to develop you, try developing your own skills, investing in yourself as much as possible, whether that's through training, personal development books. Those are game changers in relations to how you show up every day. Instead of trusting just your internal relationships with your teams and the people that you're most confident working with on the regular, try to continue to build your personal brand and continue to build your network outside of the industry. And we'll talk about that later. Instead of just trusting external validation, try this too. Try loving yourself unconditionally and showing yourself compassion when things externally don't go right. And a big thing that I do in order to help us get through this, because it's really hard some days to look in the mirror and give yourself a high five or to say, yes, I am a badass. Like, it sounds so easy, but when you have a rough day or if you have something that falls through, you have to get to a feeling and a thinking place that is going to enable you to show up as a talent. And one of the tools I use in my model for coaching is a thought ladder. So what you do is you start looking at your thoughts. And let's just say that at the top of the ladder is the thought that you really want to have. And in this case, it's I am a badass. But at the bottom of the ladder, you're really not feeling so fresh. You're feeling like I'm not good enough. Well, it's hard sometimes to look at yourself in the mirror and say, yes, I'm awesome, I'm amazing. Because if you don't feel it and you don't believe it, it's not going to work for you. And so a thought ladder is a way to start building little by little more positive statements that you do believe. And so maybe it's, I'm worthy because I'm here. Or maybe on a day that you feel like quitting and you don't feel like that talent walking through the door, you can tell yourself, when I try, I learn, and when I quit, I lose. It's these types of mantras that are accessible to you and, most importantly, believable to you. And that's what you work on. That's what you put your sticky note on your laptop. That's what you put on your cell phone. Maybe if you're into tattoos, it's your next wrist tattoo, but you start repeating it until you believe it. And you slowly but surely move up that ladder in any area in your life. And it's really powerful because it's something that you own. And as you draw that ladder out for yourself, you can see yourself grow in your own self-belief and confidence. And ultimately, you see yourself embracing your own talent. And another reason why we want to do this is confidence is contagious. Unless in the instance, and this will happen, where anyone is intimidated by you. And if they are, that's not your business. Just send them a thought ladder and move on with your life, because your thoughts about yourself is really, truly your real business. All right, let's move on. Let's keep going. Unless, Jill, did you have any questions or builds?
No, I love this, Liz, so very much. And even the short story you shared with the executive, like, we don't necessarily sit down with an executive, but we are sitting down or making an awkward call to a co-broke, the agent on the other side of the deal, or sellers when we want them need to do a price reduction and we know they're not going to be happy, or buyers. There are so many hard calls that we have to make. And I think, and even in addition to that, I think we all question, especially in real estate, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors on social media, and we start to get in our head and I am not good enough. And just having that confidence of knowing we all have our own superpower and we all have something that makes us excel in this industry. This is so good. Thank you.
All right, great. Well, I'll make sure we leave time for questions at the end too, but I want to keep rocking just to give you guys some more content to reflect on. So the next principle is context. So this is under really the concept of when the talent is happy, the talent performs. So when you think about talent, like Beyonce, Justin Timberlake, Coldplay, Mariah, they all have very specific things that they ask for in order to ensure that they're performing at their best. So Beyonce needs her dressing room set at a certain temperature. I think there's a rumor that Mariah Carey needs so many green M&Ms. I think Justin Timberlake makes sure that all door handles are wiped down, which totally makes sense and hopefully is happening for him. And then Coldplay, this might be my favorite. Whenever they perform in a major city, they ask for postcards to be provided so that they can send them, to their family while they're gone. So when we think about relating that to you, really happiness comes from alignment, right? And so when the talent is happy, the talent performs, and your happiness isn't necessarily, just something that's going to come and go or shouldn't come and go in relation to those external circumstances. It should be about you really knowing what you want and how you want to show up and being in alignment with that. And so one of the tools that I created for this is the whole self ecosystem. So if context is about ensuring that you're in the right environment, then what we want to do is we want to create a model and go through each of these areas of the model and unpack it to make sure that we're in alignment with where we want to be. And that we're moving in the right direction. I know it's February, so what, we're now 2 months into 2023. We tend to think in December about like resolutions and really, okay, I'm going to do this year. I'm going to hit this goal this year. And it's great to have those goals. I think it's also, though, equally important to explore a little bit deeper within the things that we want and why we want them. Because when we create deeper meaning for ourselves, we're more likely to become committed and show up in a way that is in alignment with our talent. And a couple of things to note. Number one, you, again, are the center of this ecosystem. And so because of that, this whole self ecosystem can change at any time. You might have had one whole self ecosystem, 5 years ago. If you had young kids and your kids were little, you might have had a completely different, set of statements here. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is this should evolve as you evolve. And then additionally, it doesn't have to be perfect to be enough. You might find that there are some things in these areas that as you go and you answer and you evaluate them, you might not feel like they're all the way to bright. What's important, though, is you have a vision of where you want to go in each of these areas so that you can continue to focus where you need to focus. So let me break this down for you. The first area is vision. And the way I think about vision, and vision is pretty straightforward, but what do you want on your tombstone? And I'm totally quoting a frozen pizza commercial, but really it's about what do you want your obituary to say? And I'm not trying to be morbid, but when we really do know that no extra day is guaranteed for any of us, we start to get serious about what we want out of life, what experiences we want. What do you want to create and share? This is not just about work. Work obviously is very important, especially when you consider you spend more time with coworkers and doing work than you do with your own family. But really think about, what are you working for? Who are you working for? What is your life resume? Not just work. So we start thinking about that and we dream big and we talk about, we get really connected to ourselves as how do we want to show up? And once that is clear, then we get into values. So when you think about values, values ensure alignment and integrity with your vision. So think about values are the things that are enabling your vision to come and manifest into your life. So usually 3 to 5 core values are important. These are some of mine: freedom, wellness, family growth, independence. You can Google words. There are word clouds everywhere in relation to values. But the reason why you want to articulate those values is you can use them as a barometer for choosing the right roles, the right clients, companies, the projects you want to work on, and the experiences, because you want to ensure that those two are always in alignment. Non-negotiables. So the way I like to think about non-negotiables is regular proof that the value is showing up in your life. So think about non-negotiables as the tangibles that must be present in order for you to be happy as a talent in your life. And the one thing I want to say about happiness is I don't want you guys to confuse when I'm saying happiness that things are easy. I feel like we've been socialized to think we need to be happy all the time and it's positivity. But I think sometimes when you're building to bigger goals, it's about being happy when you're in the grit. Being happy with the hard, because you know that even though you might be in the middle of an obstacle, you know that you're going in the right direction. So I really want to make sure that I'm caveating that, because when you're doing big things in your life, in your career, which I know you all want for yourselves, it's not going to be easy. But if you know that you're in alignment with your vision and with your values, then there should be a sense of happiness within yourself because you see the bigger picture. So for me, it's about wellness. I need enough time in my day to practice self-care. That could be a nap, that could be working out, whatever. For family, flexibility to get the kids on the bus when they need to, freedom, For me, roles that give me room to lead and feel empowered. Wealth, an example of wealth could be just enough money to save 10%. These are things that are non-negotiables to you. There's no right or wrong answer. And this is a good example of where I shared in the beginning, maybe those non-negotiables aren't showing up today, but those are ways that you can continue to strive to say, well, I know I'm moving ahead if I'm in this zip code, right, with these values. Growth. Because being comfy is false security. So again, to build on what I said about happiness, happiness comes from progress, really, not ease. So when you're thinking about growth, what you want to think about is, how can I bet on myself? How can I bet on myself? What can I learn and what do I need to unlearn? What experience is required for me to level up, even if it scares me? Because if you're doing it right, it should, and it will. And I love this image. You can find this too. This is not mine. It's the comfort zone image. I love this. This is a good way for you to check in with yourself to say, am I moving forward in, where I can be with my own talent? I think it's really, really likely that we're always going to want to be in the comfort zone because that's where we're going to feel safe. That's where our brains are wired to keep us. But there's no growth in the comfort zone. Ultimately, growth comes from betting on yourself and learning new things and then applying those in different ways in order to get where you want to be. Okay, so we've talked about everything inside of you. Now we can finally talk about the external environment. So it is important for you to be able to say within your environment, what do you want work to look like? What do you want your life to look like? What is the type of ways you spend your time? What is the room you walk into? What does it feel like? Who are you working with? What are the special projects? What are the experiences you want? What are the things that you want to go do, as you make certain sales? What does that mean to your family? I think in terms of environment, it's about setting those standards. And if you've done the work to go through all of the wheel, then you're going to find that your environment and the things you want are a lot more meaningful. I think what we're tended to believe and behave and we're socialized to learn is, hey, what kind of job do you want? What kind of income do you want? Yeah, that's important. But until you really start with the vision, the values, the non-negotiables, it's not necessarily grounded in who you want to be as a person while doing it. So that's really important for you to articulate. So I know I talked through that kind of quickly. Let me give you an example of how I used this wheel in 2021. So in 2021, I was impacted by a massive round of layoffs with my company. And so there were I think it was like a 20% cut to staff. It wasn't in relation to performance. They just eliminated a lot of jobs and I did not see it coming. And so for me personally, I had to really continue to see myself as the talent in my life. And I had to make some decisions in relation to what do I want work to be about for me? What do I want work to look like? I knew I could go on LinkedIn and I could apply for jobs. I had a huge network, but if I really didn't know where I wanted to go, then I wasn't confident that I would necessarily make the right move and choose the right environment or find the right environment or create the right environment for that point in my life. So when I started with the vision for myself, it was really simple. So you don't need to write these huge vision and mission statements. For me, it was to create unencumbered. I wanted to have my own voice. I didn't want to feel like I was necessarily a product of a company. I wanted to be my own product. And the big thing that was super important to me for my girls was to be able for them to see me creating something and creating myself, because I knew if they saw that woman and their mother, then they could become that woman someday for themselves. And so that was really important to me. That is actually still my vision. That hasn't necessarily changed. But it was really important for me to get clear on who I wanted to become. And so when I thought about my values, I wanted to ensure that I was available to my family as I needed. I wanted to be free from, necessarily being in one role for too long. I wanted to work across multiple businesses, multiple categories. I wanted to have the freedom to start my own my own coaching business. And I also wanted to experience a lot of growth, not just growth financially, but growth personally. My non-negotiable was to get my kids off the bus. So I had been like 2020 working from home, and I had never been able to get my kids on the bus or off the bus. And it was so important for me that at least 80% of the time I could get them on or off the bus. That was my non-negotiable. And when I thought about what was I going to need to do and what was I going to need to learn and overcome to get to where I wanted to be, I had to get really good at understanding sales. I had to get awesome at dealing with rejection, which when you're in a client side job that I was, you usually are the one doing the rejection. So now all of a sudden I had to be rejected, which that was really fun. And it's happened enough now that I'm more comfortable with it, but I had to build that muscle. I had to build the muscle of business development. And I had to start understanding what it meant to behave as an advisor to people, not necessarily just being the client and receiving that. So those were things that I needed to do and develop. And when I was able to go around that circle and answer all those questions, I knew and I could articulate what I wanted my work life to be like. And that's where I said, you know what? I want to be a consultant. I want to work remote. And I want something that is a lot more entrepreneurial than a 9-to-5. And and I'm not kidding you, as soon as I wrote this down on a piece of paper, literally like 3 weeks later, I was working with the partnering group in a consultant basis. So it is very powerful once you start making those decisions for things to meet you. Sometimes those things are good, and sometimes those things are obstacles that look like shit, but they're there to get you on the other side. So I think this is really important work, and I think it's a really important story and lesson just to show the power that your vision has in creating the opportunities for yourself. All right. The last principle is connection. So this whole time I've been talking about you, and I'm going to talk about you some more, so don't worry. But this whole time we've been talking about you as the talent, and we really haven't necessarily talked about the relationships. And what you all do is a relationship-based business. And so that's why it's so important to be intentional, not only how you connect with others, but how you think about that intentionally in your industry and outside your industry. So you only have one job. And I know this is the picture of, again, reminding you of death, but it's about living a life and creating a legacy that is based on connection. So whether you're an agent, an administrator, a team leader, what's important is that you're a human first, and you are a human with limited time. And so it's important that you recognize that your legacy and the power in your life comes from who you impact. And that all stems from connections. And obviously those connections can be with coworkers, with your family. But when you start really finding the deeper meaning in every engagement that you have with people, whoever they are, you start determining, how do I want my talent to impact these people? And how can I show up more in alignment with that? So ultimately, connection is about you viewing your work always as an opportunity to connect and connect intentionally. But obviously, it's been hard. And I don't know about you all, but obviously when 2020 happened and even into 2021 and a lot still today, there is a lot more emphasis on virtual meetings and virtual connections. And what that means is oftentimes people feel less connected to their coworkers, friends, their network since the pandemic. And Jill, you brought up, the social media. Oftentimes it's really easy to check out, look at our phones and compare and contrast like what's happening out there. And that's not necessarily real, but it can feel real when it's in your face. And so what we want to think about when we're thinking about connections, it's about that reality and that existence that spurs a better life and a better working environment. And so these are some things to know, like, I know that I'm truly connecting when I'm collaborating, when I feel more productive, and when I'm working with others in a productive way. When I'm enhancing my knowledge, or I'm sharing knowledge with others and I'm giving that gift and I'm creating and sharing of myself. And then in tune, in what you share with others or what you exchange, you're fostering creativity. So connection is very active. It's not passive. I think over the last couple years, it's been easier for us to be consumers. And I know this, I'm like so guilty. It's like I read self-help books like crazy. I'm listening to podcasts like crazy. I'm watching any Netflix special on personal development that comes out. But what am I doing to create? And oftentimes creation means stop consuming, start connecting, start meeting people, and then start creating opportunities for yourself. So how do we do that? What I recommend is intentional connections. So inside your organization, or think about it inside your industry, really start seeking out those connections with people with skill set and experiences over, the title or status. So if there's individuals that you see out there and or within your organization that are really digitally savvy or very marketing savvy, or just seem like they lead, from integrity, start really spending some time with them, seeking them out. You make those focus connections with these people, and you can just meet with them for 20 to 30 minutes and say, hey, I want to talk to you about how you're seeing the industry. What are you struggling with, and what are your plans to overcome that? That can be really powerful in just brainstorming and getting ideas, and learn how you can really help one another. Outside your organization, I think it's really important to understand what's happening adjacent, to your industry. So are there vendors that, are ancillary, to real estate? Maybe there's contractors, home improvement, that could really help you understand what's happening on their side. Again, just a way to enhance your perspective. Obviously, there's a ton of consultants out there that are willing to help and give you your opinion. Coaches are great as well. And even conferences. And I know you guys just had one about a month ago, but really just expanding your thinking and getting out of the day-to-day is just as important as doing the work inside your organization and inside your industry. And then obviously creators. And again, read the books, listen to the podcasts, but don't use it as an excuse to get out there and meet people. And I love to give you guys a goal, and this can be whatever it is to you, but I'd love to encourage you to spend an hour per month or more, maybe 1% better over time inside your organization, especially if you're new to the organization or you are getting new people inside your organization, and then 1 hour per week or 1% better outside your organization. So, really just ensuring, and I think this says month, they should probably both say weeks in relation to, the amount of connecting you all need to do. But I think it's really important to get yourself out there, continue to meet people, and continuing to build on your talent. And then we talked about the talent really needing an entourage. So, you might have a spouse that is incredibly supportive, and you might be lucky enough to have a mom that's always cheerleading you, and a boss and a team lead. And that's amazing if you have that. But what I want to encourage you to do is meet 5 to 10 people to really challenge you, broaden your network, and support your growth, because diverse thinking will help inspire your creativity. And so again, somebody like 10 years younger than you and somebody 10 years older than you, somebody in your industry, somebody outside your industry. Again, those are some of the people that when you're thinking about, well, I just talked to all those people, and start making a list of the 100 people you want to talk to in the next 90 days. And that is a lot of people. But when you think about it, you get more creative and you start making those connections. So in closing, I know I talked a lot at you. I want to make sure that I leave time for questions or any just feedback you guys have, or if you want me to go deeper in any area. But you are the talent in your life. You are the main player. You have the power to overcome any circumstances that are out there, but it starts with thinking about yourself in a whole new way, ensuring that your confidence is ultimately at greater levels than any sort of trust in the outside, inclusive of opinions and circumstances. Ensuring you're building a context for how you want to show up every day and in the future, and then connecting more. So with that, I wanted to just end with sharing my contact information. I would love to get to know you all better. We should totally hang out. You guys can email me. I have a website. You can get on my email list and I can share with you my weekly just blogs. I'm on Instagram and Facebook too. I also have a podcast. It's Work Whim, and I am working on an ebook that will be out this spring, as well as accepting individuals for one-on-one coaching and group coaching as well. So just wanted to thank you, and thank you for all of you attending, and thanks to Jill for setting this up. But I'd love to just pause and just take any questions from you if you guys want me to go deeper into anything or anything that you might have.
Liz, first, I just want to thank you so much. And I wrote in the chat, her weekly blog, I would drop your email or find, she just had the information up. They are so good. And talking about connecting and having an opinion of somebody outside of our direct industry, you know, like you get it, Liz, yet it's good to have just a different perspective. But I loved this so much. And there are some things, it's funny, like even the circle of trust, when you talked about vision in real estate, we talk so much about like, what's your why?
Yeah.
And starting with there and understanding that and like who you want to be or why you're doing what you're doing. I mean, it's like you have to start there. And something I've noticed too, when you had values, I did this a few years ago and have totally kind of forgotten about it until you bring it up again. When you can name what your values are personally, and you could have them as a family, you can have them as a real estate team, you could have them as an agent, but naming your own personal ones, I think it sets you free to make decisions. Like decisions are easier if you can go back to, does this align with my values and what I want?
Amen. And I love what you said that about in terms of values driving your decisions, because I think oftentimes, you know, we tend to, especially if you're on the verge of a life change or you just are dealing with a lot of stuff, it's very tempting to sit in indecision. And think about indecision almost as indulgence, right? Because you're not moving. But if you're clear on your values, it should be much easier for you to see what move to make, even if you're unsure. And especially if you've worked on your confidence, because you know that there are no wrong moves. And that's a mantra of mine. There are no wrong moves. Every move is a right move, because if it's bad, I'm going to learn from it and I'm going to overcome it. And if it's good, it's going to lead to better. So really great point, Jill.
I also took a picture of your circles, the growth circles, because we're in, I don't know how many people on this call are in it, but we're in a class right now. It's called Bold, and it goes deep into skills and mindset. And he said yesterday, you know, like if you're not growing, you truly are almost decaying, you know, like you're growing or you're not. And I think we get scared to make ourselves uncomfortable. So I love that you brought that point up too.
Great. Very good. Thank you. Any questions or comments or any areas you guys want me to go deeper into? Anything?
Well, Liz, if I hope I'm not interrupting anybody, but we thank you so very much. Maybe put your contact info on that last slide real quick.
Yes, I will. Let me go back. Sorry, I'm trying not to make you all nauseous with the fast scrolling.
That's okay.
Yeah, and
connection.
I can send it to Jill too, if you want to send it out to if you want to send it out to the team too, we can also, you know, I could share it with your group and send it via email. That way you guys have it. But yeah, this is my contact information, and I'd love to hear from you all. Even if you're just digesting on what I shared and you have more questions, or you just want to reach out, please, you know, DM me, send me an email. And I would love to just help in any way. And I'm so appreciative of your time. So thank you all.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great week.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye.